All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson McKay.
And today's guest is Kenny Florian. Kenny is a true legend in the martial arts sphere. His bio is immense. 3 times World UFC title contender in 2 weight classes. 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a mixed martial artist and a Muay Thai expert. He's the creator of the Kenny Florian Martial Arts.com website. He's a co-founder and owner of Florian Martial Arts Center in Brookline, MA, USA. He's an analyst and commentator for the Professional Fighters League on ESPN. He's a co-host of the BattleBots on Discovery Channel. He's a professional jiu-jitsu commentator and a graduate of Boston College. And in today's episode, we discuss how to live the warrior's lifestyle. And now, let's get to the interview. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've been a major star of yours from dusk to dawn. I found you during The Ultimate Fighter originally, when I started getting to the UFC, but I've been a fan since you've been commentating. Your YouTube channel is amazing. But for people who maybe don't recognize the name, and there'll be a few living under a rock probably, how would you introduce yourself? How would you give the example? Because you've done the full cycle of fighting. How would you describe who you are and why you're a legend?
Gotcha. I guess I would best describe myself as a martial artist. I've been doing martial arts since I was a kid, then took like a long hiatus. I was doing a lot of soccer and other sports and things like that, and then reconnected with martial arts in college. And I guess that's the thing that I guess I most associate myself with. I kind of am into a lot of different things, I guess. So, I do commentary, of course. So I do, play-by-play, or not play-by-play, but color commentary. I did it both for the UFC, and now I do it for the PFL, the Professional Fighters League. I also do commentary for a show called BattleBots, which is similar to Robot Wars over in the UK. BattleBots is a show on Discovery Channel. So I do. I'm a martial artist. I do TV stuff. I fought in the UFC for around 7 years. I competed for 3 different world championships in 2 different weight classes. I fought in 4 different weight classes in the UFC. And I'm just trying to continue to grow and be the best student and the best teacher that I can be, within the martial arts realm. So always trying to learn, always trying to get better. And that's, I guess, pretty much it.
I love it that you're still trying to grow after being in the biggest organization in the world, commenting here. I mean, you even did AI BattleBots. You do martial arts with artificial intelligence. You can't go further than that. But can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing? Because your dad's Peruvian and he was a surgeon. Do you think his kind of controlled and analytical mindset really helped you in the cross training you did as a kid? Because you did judo and kung fu and all these sort of things. Do you think that made you such a great competitor? That cerebral outlook?
I think that I didn't see him a whole lot because he was working so much, but I think that the main thing that I got from him was work ethic and belief in yourself. Those are the 2 things that he used to talk about a lot. My dad worked very hard at his job. He was always, away from home pretty much. He was up early and back home late. He was a very busy guy. So he was a chest surgeon. So he did everything from the lungs to the heart to everything in there. So, that takes obviously a tremendous amount of work ethic and hard work, especially as someone who came from Peru. to break into the United States and establish himself as a top surgeon, was a very difficult thing, especially back then in the 60s and 70s. So, and he said, I remember he told me a story about how he was trying to get into a residency program initially from Peru. And they told him that they had already picked who they were going to have as residents. And he went to the United States anyway to have an interview. And they're like, well, you can if you want, if you want to come by, that's fine. But we already picked the people that we have. And he was very persistent, and he went there and he proved himself, and they took him on as another resident. So I remember him just, talking about being an optimist, believing yourself, and having the work ethic to back it up. And eventually said, people are going to, take notice and you'll be successful, but it's never an easy journey, and you got to fight for what you want. And those are kind of the main takeaways that I got from my dad.
I love it. I mean, it's because you said initially you got into martial arts because you felt a warrior's calling, like the lifestyle. Do you think that's part of it, is that you were seeing that from your parents, that kind of, we're going to fight, we're going to compete for whatever, you were not giving up? Or, you said, I think it was on Chewy's podcast, you said that when Dana originally asked you to come on The Ultimate Fighter, you were like, nah, I'm just doing this for fun. And then you wanted to do it. I mean, I love that. Like, nah, this is just for me. I'm turning down millions and all. But what changed there? What did you think? You said, I think it was, you wanted to challenge yourself. Was it just about you and your own self?
Yeah, it was a couple things. It's hard for me to really pinpoint where it comes from, but I felt like it came from somewhere pretty deep inside. I think that as a kid, I actually suffered from a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And anytime I did martial arts as a kid, I felt like there was a certain connection there that was kind of spiritual like. And I felt like nothing else existed in the world. And I felt a certain amount of that when I was playing soccer. But with martial arts specifically, I felt like I was doing something that was extremely important. And again, it could have been the influence of watching a lot of martial arts movies as a kid, and having a bunch of brothers around, and having to know how to defend yourself and talking about fighting and things. But I felt that calling, and getting in a fight, getting in a physical altercation, scared the shit out of me, to be candid. And ultimately, I knew that there was a method to how to fight, and I wanted to learn that to feel more secure with myself. So it was a very personal journey for me. And once I kind of figured out that there was a method, I became very addicted with that process. And I found that it was much more than that, because in doing that, it unlocked a lot of the anxiety that I felt in myself as a kid. It gave me a lot more confidence. And and I played sports all my life. I was relatively confident, I guess, in that regard, because I knew that if you worked hard, you could achieve certain goals. But with jiu-jitsu, it being such a one-on-one type of journey, and this kind of roller coaster ride of finding out direct answers to different problems that you experience on the mat, it was both physical, it was mental, it was spiritual, it was everything together. And it was fascinating to me. And I felt like it's helped me become, I guess, a better person, a more real person. And it's helped me to become a stronger person. So I there's not many things that I encounter in my life that I can't relate back to my lessons on the mat. And it's a very humble lifestyle, but it's a very important one that has helped me tremendously in all facets of my life.
Because you think about the number of people who you've inspired to take up training, who love to listen to your play-by-plays, and like, there's nothing, I could hardly find a bad word about you written anywhere. And I love that approach. It's like you got into it because you're like me, you've got anxiety, you deal with it. And I struggle with that. And just now, I'm a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I still think, what the hell am I doing here? Like, when you're getting pummeled into a corner and stuff.
Yes.
Because you named one of your gyms, I'm going to sorry, I'm going to make an awful pronunciation. Marquez?
Oh, Meraki. Yeah, I used to be a part of
Marquez,
Meraki.
yeah.
I'm not anymore, but yes. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm. And you were saying that was like a piece of yourself was into the sport. It was you left a piece of yourself into the work. You seem to have that kind of life philosophy. Do you think you're always putting a piece of yourself into whatever you're doing, like your commentary, your play-by-play, etc.?
I think for the things that you care about, I think you need
Mm.
to. And in that place, you make yourself a little bit more vulnerable. But I've found that I learn best when I fall on my face. The answers become more apparent, and um, you know, I think a lot of times we run away from failure. We are so
Mm.
scared of failure, and actually, in running away from failure, we actually run away further from success as well. And we live in this kind of medium zone where we become very average because that's the safe place to be. And I think that's a very dangerous thing in a lot of ways, because how can we elevate um, our lives? How can we elevate our communities? How can we elevate the world if everyone is just trying to be average? And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from exceptional individuals. I try to learn as much as I can from exceptional individuals and
Mm.
see where I need to fill in those gaps and what can I do to achieve some of what they achieved, or how to get there. And it's extremely important to surround yourselves around positive people and people that are doing good and important things at a high level, because there's so many lessons to be learned. So um, I guess what I'm getting at is we also don't do this alone. And we also need to understand that nothing great gets achieved by doing easy things. It is the practice and execution of hard things that allows us to grow and get better. And in that process, falling down and failing is inevitable. But what those things are doing, they're pointing us in the right direction. It's like, okay, well, you made a mistake. Why did that mistake happen? Was that you? Was
Mm.
that them? And you start to unwind that process and start to figure things out, and hopefully become better because of it.
Because that's what I love about like your YouTube videos, your social media. Everything's so very analytical and it's very thought provoking, and you always come out as a better martial artist just by reading something you've written or watch something. I'm like, this guy gets it. It's deep. He, truly understands it. But martial arts are scary. There's like 90,000 things to learn for sweeps, throws, takedowns.
Yeah.
Do you go from the Kit Dale, learn the concepts? Do you do the Gordon Ryan, like, I don't know, what, like the super techniques he does? Or do you follow the Roger Gracie approach and go, basics is best? I'll become an expert in the basics. How do you learn jiu-jitsu? What would you recommend somebody, their approach to learning?
Yeah. It's an interesting question because I'm not sure I have the answer necessarily, to be honest. I think that I've seen a lot of people take those three approaches and more and become very successful practitioners. So I think it comes down to how the individual learns best. Um, for me, it ends up being more conceptual understanding, understanding the big things first. I think when you understand the big things first, you can still be very successful and then dial in the little things. But I think about, I was actually having a discussion with someone who is a high level weapons expert, and he was saying that, hey, listen, fundamentals. Well, what do the fundamentals mean? I don't even understand what the fundamentals mean. So when people talk about fundamentals, I don't really get that. Well, I disagree. I think so. The fundamentals are, for me, those concepts that are so important that the execution of that move wouldn't work without them. Right? It's like everyone gets tied into little specific grips and this and that, but the reality is if the move can be done with this grip, this grip, this grip, this grip, is it the grip, or is it there's something else in mind? So I always think about, what are the big things? What are the main things that I need to be aware of? Let's tackle that first. Let's worry about that, and then let's get into the nitty gritty, because there is a core to the move. There's always a core to the move that must be executed in a very specific way, or these concepts or principles must be satisfied before the move can actually work, right? It's like, it doesn't matter if I have that core of that move and it's totally incorrect. It doesn't matter how I grip you or what kind of execution I have. It's like if the sprockets aren't touching together, then it doesn't matter. Then nothing's going to move. So it doesn't matter about the stuff on the outside, on the periphery. So I think finding what those core concepts are first and getting the handle on that, I think makes things a lot easier. And for me, it also becomes way easier for me to understand. I mean, imagine memorizing thousands of techniques. Like I have a pretty decent memory, but to memorize thousands and thousands and thousands of techniques, that's very difficult for anybody. Or I can get a concept that applies to thousands of techniques. I think it's way easier to understand a concept, right, that applies to many different things than it is to memorize all these techniques. Now, that said, there are a lot of individuals that learn extremely well with a bunch of techniques. Guys have great memories. Guys have great athletic abilities where, they do it once and their body just completely knows what they need to do. For me, before I get really comfortable, it needs to be in here. If it's not in here, I'm okay. Once it's in here, I'm pretty good for the most part. I just need it here, and then I just need to hammer it home as far as execution, my body, and sensitivity. But for whatever reason, I need to understand what I need to do here before I could do anything with my body.
Because I used to do that. I would say, put it on me, because I needed to feel where the pressure was or how it was applied, or where was the point you go, yeah, I fucked up. I'm in trouble now, Yes. Is that do you think that's how you learned space repetition, kind of like needing to feel the pressure points? Is that the way that you would typically approach something of training in the gym? Or, do you focus strengths and weaknesses? How would you break it down?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, understanding understanding happens a lot with our feel, right? It's like, okay, well, feel what? Feel, whether you're sad or mad or angry. No, feel where are they controlling your body? What are they doing with their legs? What are they doing with their arms? What are they doing with their overall position? How are they angled? What is their connection to the floor? Now, let's reverse it. What are you doing with all those things? What is your connection to the floor? How is your stability? Are you set up to go in this direction? Are you set up to go in that direction? How are you placing your weight? Where is your weight? Why is your weight there? What space is available? How do I occupy that space? So it's all those things take a certain amount of feel, and not only visually you need to understand like what's happening, but if you just close your eyes and you feel the position, you feel where they're controlling you, you then can kind of untie those knots, if that makes sense. So I think feel is one of the best indicators, and is typically never lying to you. So we just need to understand, like, that's kind of the truth of the position is what the feel is. Now you got to untie, exactly what that means and where you need to go. But that's the beginning of that understanding. But I think a lot of it really comes down to feel.
No, it's a great answer, because when I first started, I was thinking, why can't I sweep this guy? I'm doing the exact same scissor sweep everybody else, and it's like, oh, you've got to pull them forward. Oh, you've got to feel their weight coming. And I was like, yeah. Oh, and it blew my mind. I was doing the movement, not a clue what I was doing. I was all over the shop. And I mean, I think you kind of have well known for making these amazing game plans and really sort of feeling out people, and you look to control their pace and their aggression and things like that. How do you build that feel? How do you get so good at it? Because you were knocking people out, you were passing guards like it was nothing. How do you get that intuition even?
Yeah, that's a good question. I certainly wasn't perfect by any means. I made a lot of mistakes, both tactically, strategically. Those things are important, though. For the most part, I tried to figure out ways to defeat people, and I was relatively successful. But for my game, but I think you need to understand two things. I guess to make it simple, you need to understand yourself, and you need to understand your opponent. What are your strengths and weaknesses, and what are their strengths and weaknesses? And there can't be any lies there, right? There can be no lies detected. You have to be extremely honest with yourself. If you're not, you're going to get exposed, right? And you might just get exposed anyway. But having a very real gauge on what your skills are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, allows you to formulate those game plans. So, again, this is not original, right? By me, Sun Tzu's talked about, understand yourself, understand your enemy, and it is so true. It's extremely important. So, what I would do would be to spar a lot, and I would watch a lot of fights, whether it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, but mainly it was Muay Thai and mixed martial arts. I would watch a tremendous amount of kickboxing, Muay Thai, and mixed martial arts. And that would give me kind of different ideas, different approaches, recognize patterns, see what's successful, see what's not successful, and even see people that were, winning fights, but also not being efficient. So I think at the core, in my approach, is efficiency. How can I be most efficient? And in some cases, efficiency, and this is going to be kind of counterintuitive, I guess, a little bit. In some cases, efficiency means actually trying to take them out as quickly as possible when I have that ability. I tried to be, when I got my certain positions, I tried to be as aggressive as possible to try to overwhelm and take them out immediately. If I didn't, I always thought that if I had a great position or if I had the ability to finish a fight in that moment, if I didn't go for it, that I would only allow my opponent to survive that round and then give them another chance to kill me. Why would I give him that chance? If I had the opportunity to finish my opponent, I was going to go for it. I didn't always do it, but I was gonna make damn sure that I gave it my best to try to take them out in that time, because when you have that position, why would I allow my opponent to survive? I did have to be in the best shape possible, so I could, bring that fuel to those moments in the fight. But so, so it's important that we understand when to step on the gas and when not to. It's important that I need to pace myself and also find those ways where I can be more efficient and more effective than my opponent. I also don't want to go for the kill and open myself up to an attack. So I tried to view things more in terms of options that I have and options that my opponent has. Offense and defense, I think, is a simplistic way of looking at the fight game in general. And I guess across all different modalities, because offense and defense, like, I don't know, how do we describe those things? And is offense always offense? It's like, oh, you're on top. You may have an advantageous position against another blue belt, but you go against another black belt and you feel like you're defending the whole time. There's certain guys where you're in mount and you feel like you can't even do anything, like you're actually defending the position and they're actually escaping. So,
every day.
I don't like, you know what I mean? So I don't like thinking of it in terms of offense and defense. I like thinking of it in terms of options that you have and options that they have. How do I maximize my options and how do I minimize the options of my opponent? And if we could start from there and kind of take a first principles approach, then, hopefully we can come up with some good stuff.
Because I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and I remember you were talking about how you like to watch a lot of the fights and the, sporting highlights to kind of learn from it. What do you see the similarities in all these top competitors? The ones who kind of are like blowing away the masses, the guys who shouldn't be great fighters but just seem to be natural. Do you see something in the way they approach their training, their behaviors, just their general attitudes that makes them so good?
Yeah, I think the common theme for most guys at the top is they are extremely mentally tough, right? They are physically very tough. They are very durable and strong mentally and physically. They're going to continue to press forward no matter what. So if that's the case, then like technically we need to find something that can defeat those guys, right? Because you need to be technically superior to those guys that are going to come forward. You just need to be outright better than them. And that's not easy in this day and age, right? Because guys are learning the game. They're learning from all previous fights. The training is getting better. Coaches are getting smarter. Training camps are getting better as far as how to approach that. And, I see that there's way more better fighters today, I think, than there were back when I was fighting. People are figuring it out. They're figuring out ways to get better and improve. Um, yeah, so like the elite guys, um, I see it sometimes, but I still see a lack of evolution in some ways amongst the elite guys. Take Alexander Volkanovski, for example. How many champions do you see that continually get better? I don't see a lot. Like, it doesn't mean they're not good fighters. They're great fighters, don't get me wrong. But someone like a Volkanovski who is continually adding to his game and getting better as a featherweight champion in the UFC is impressive. That's the way it should be, but it's extremely rare that a guy is continually adding layers and levels to his game, offensively, defensively. It's impressive to watch. So that is what makes someone very rare, and unique, is that individual who can also hit and not get hit, who can go out there and be aggressive, be efficient and effective without taking a lot of damage. That to me is the sign of a master, someone who has a certain mastery over the martial arts, right? It's
Yeah.
anybody can go in there and fight and not give up and be tough and all that stuff. Maybe not anybody, but any tough guy can do that. But to be efficient, effective, and not take damage is another thing altogether. Like that person knows something and is executing something that other people just are not. And that I think is special. And that's what, I try to chase with my martial arts if I can. And I think that's ultimately kind of what nature is doing, right? It's like nature is trying to be as efficient and effective as possible. They're always making things, it's this intelligence that is built into nature in general is always looking for ways to be more efficient and more effective, for better or worse. It is plowing forward with an evolution that is trying to make things easier for it to either grow or get the heck out of the way. That thing is going to die. And if it's not able to evolve at a faster pace or a more efficient pace, it gets killed, period. So I find that, that's the same way with martial arts.
I love the way you look at stuff. It's like I could listen to you chat for hours. Like, well, I have because I've been on your podcast, but I think it was Bruce Lee that said like martial artists need to see the world with fresh eyes always. They can't just, like you were saying, just rest on the laurels of that worked, I'll stay to there, and always going out and trying to change. And do you think that's like where the top guys are doing? They're kind of always going, how can I improve? How can I evolve?
Ian, I think that's like one of the tricks of life, right? I think that so many times we take things for granted and we come in with these perspectives that are old, or this baggage that we have from our past that allows us, or that tells us to look at a thing in a very certain way. It's like if we've been jaded or cheated or fooled or tricked or beat up or all these, a lot of times we take that and put that baggage on our shoulders and we see the world with those lenses, right? The big goal, and Jiddu Krishnamurti, who I know was a big influence for Bruce Lee as well, great philosopher, used to say that it's so important to look at the world with fresh eyes. That's what allows us to think differently and be creative and not just see things in the same manner over and over and over again. I think that's the value of meditation as well. And it gives us a clean slate. It cleans the mind. It sends things to the recycling bin for us to look at things anew. Because I mean, there's so many times where we're judging people or ideas or positions in jiu-jitsu and thinking that, oh, this is the way that it's done. But the reality is no one has the corner or the market on intelligence, right? Like we are the best coaches that we have. If you're lucky, you get great mentorship and great teaching, which I've been lucky enough to get from a variety of sources. And that helps a lot. But then understanding that you can go further and you can see things differently, that helps you see it in a different way, that maybe gives you a little more oomph here or a little more oomph there. So taking information and then asking the right questions. Now, I don't know if it's such an important thing to do when you're like day one white belt, but after you get a certain amount of information, I do think it's important to question yourself. Like, I mean, again, I don't think I would be here today if I didn't question my life and be like, hey, do I want to work in a cubicle my whole life? Do I really want to go to law school? Or do I want to chase this thing that I love called martial arts, even though everyone tells me I'll never do anything with it. I'll never make any money. I'll never make a life out of it. Like, you have to be able to separate yourself from everybody else and say, all right, is this what I want? If that's what I want, I'm going to do it. Now, how do I do it? And how do I get the best information? Now, how do I question myself and question your approach from sparring and training and fighting, and do it over and over and over again to try to find the best answer possible? And it's a lot of work, but this is truly living. It's like, see it with a fresh perspective all the time, and you're going to find, some nice gold nuggets here and there.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
So how do you, I love these kind of answers, but how do you get to that point where you can ask yourself questions, you can let your ego go, you can just keep it calm when life's just throwing shit at you and everything's going crazy? How can you go in and learn and just approach it with fresh eyes, do you think? Because they say competing's a skill you have to learn yourself.
Yes.
And I suffered from anxiety, depression, things like that. And the thought of going and competing, you get the imposter syndrome. You start thinking, well, if I'm terrible and everybody laughs, and, you talk yourself out of it. Do you think everybody needs to compete? Do you think everybody needs that kind of, to put yourself in that and learn fight or flight kind of method? Or
I think that chaos always finds us no matter what. Life will throw things at us much more difficult than anything I think we will experience on the mat in some ways. There's no place for us to hide where we just think things are going to be easy. And I don't think we're meant to live as hermits and separate ourselves from the rest of the world, even though there's times where I want to do that. But I think that, in order to get strong, I need to experience difficult things. I need to move heavy things. I need to understand myself. And in doing so, I get better answers, and I understand that I'm more and more capable of doing harder things. And I think the earlier that you can start it in your life, the better. But you can learn this at any age. You can learn this at any time in your life. Of course, one of the more famous examples is, David Goggins, who, talked about how lazy he was throughout his whole adult life, and, how he was, in terrible shape. And one day he said he was sick of it, and he would try to test himself in achieving different things, whether it was trying to get into be a Navy SEAL or trying to run 5 miles or whatever it was. He kept trying to tackle, these different challenges. And in doing so, what you're really doing is defeating yourself. You're defeating that person in your mind that's telling you you can't do it. And for anyone who thinks that like you wake up one day and thinks like, I am Superman, I can do anything. No, like it takes time to understand that you are capable of some amazing things, but that journey is long and arduous. You have to, deal with the ups and downs and understand that you are strong enough, and many, many people before you and many, many people after you have dealt with those very same things. So whether it's, reading about those things, whether it's going out and doing those things, I honestly, I think it's a combination of all those things, of learning from other people and understanding those journeys, those difficult journeys, and understanding that you can do those same things. You can absolutely do those same things. I don't think everyone is necessarily equal, right? Because it all comes down to your mindset, right? It's like everyone's like, oh, well, we are all the same. Well, we're all the same if we're thinking the same, but a lot of us, very few actually think the same. We need to elevate up here and understand and believe in ourselves and get ready for that hard work. Otherwise, no, we're not going to be able to achieve what others have achieved. And it's like, how many Michael Jordans are there? How many great athletes like that are there? But doesn't mean you can't achieve great things. You just may not be in the right sport or in the right area of your specific strengths and weaknesses. So I think that it very much starts with the mind, and it continues with the mind. You have to continually understand that all of those efforts that you're making is forward progress, even if you're falling down or taking a couple steps back. You have to believe in yourself, believe in the process, and also like surround yourself with other people that are trying to do the same thing. And I think that's really important as well, because what you don't want to feel is feel alone in that process either. But it's the practice of hard things. It's the positive mindset, and it's daily work, doing it in a lot of different ways. And it's a process. It is a process. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon for sure.
No, I wish I had listened to your podcast on that when I was starting out, because I started when I was 36, and all these guys were coming in 20 odd, with their 6-packs and doing handstand push-ups, and I'm like, I just come from powerlifting, could barely get my legs over my head. I was like, what the fuck? But I'm trying to remember the podcast you said it on, but you said you would deliberately pick out tough training partners that could beat you, and you would keep going until you could beat them, because you could say, I'm not running from them. I want to learn and grow. And how did they beat me? How did you get one over me until you were able to beat them? Then the next challenge. I love that approach. Do you think that's what made you such a good fighter?
I definitely think it helped. And I would even try to play their games a lot too. I would even try to go into their strengths. And I still try to do that because training it's there for me to get better. It's not there for me to, hey, look how great I am. I am a good martial arts practitioner. I am trying to be as good as I possibly can be, but I'm not competing anymore. For me, I just want to get better, and I want to learn as much as I can. And if I can go into someone's realm and see what they're doing and, play their game, I know I'm going to become better for it. And I try not to see it in terms of them smashing me or me smashing them. I just try to do it in terms of how can I get better with this training partner that I have. So it's and even if you're going against someone who's not good, it's like, okay, well, here's my chance for me to work a weakness in my game and try to give this person the upper hand and force me to still get better, even though I'm supposedly better or more experienced than them. So there's a lot of different ways that you can set up your training to get better, even if you're going with guys that you're better than, if that makes sense. So yeah, it helped me a lot. And also, there's so many cool approaches and training methods and techniques that are out there. I want to see as much as possible and see what I can utilize and what I can learn from.
I love that. I mean, I remember when you said about learning from chaos, you've got to chase the chaos. Do you think that's part of it? It's the constant evolution. It's like the top fighters. It's okay, I've never beaten this guy. Let's go. Let's try to find him out. Let's find how I can use his strengths against himself. And, do you think that's how you built up such a great mental resilience and you were able to stay cool in such difficult situations in your career?
I think so, and I again, I would say that I did not start out that way. For my early fights, I think I did, just because it was local and I was comfortable in that environment. But I mean, my Ultimate Fighter finale, I found out the hard way that I was not mentally prepared or spiritually prepared for a mixed martial arts fight at a high level with everyone watching. I had a lot of mental work to do, and a lot of physical and technical work to do, and that all bubbled up on fight night, and I felt like I was just a deer in the headlights. And so I knew I had to work on that. I knew I couldn't run away from that, and I knew I needed to experience as much chaos and as much pressure as possible. And sometimes you think you are until you realize there's more levels and there's more for you to see. Like, I remember for the BJ Penn fight, I only had my two main sparring partners was my Muay Thai coach and my brother Keith. Like, those were my main sparring partners. And then I had a couple guys that I brought out, Dean Thomas and Hatsu Hiyoki, who helped me. But I needed to be doing more. I mean, I didn't have the economic resources to necessarily do that as much. I would have liked to, but I certainly did after that fight. I invested so much into my training after that, where I was going to Montreal all the time. I was flying out training partners. I was paying for the best coaches possible. I wanted to learn as much as possible and train with the best guys that I could find. And that meant, utilizing the right resources. And I paid a lot to, both physically and economically to make that happen. So I always tried to take care of my coaches and my training partners and experience as much chaos as I could, because I knew that ultimately the truth would reveal itself on fight night, and I'd rather find out in training than on fight night. Candidly, after I was retired, I took it, I guess to another level as far as thinking about it, because rarely are you 100% on fight night. There's always something going on, whether it's a bad weight cut or an injury or staph infection or whatever it is, which I dealt with, all those things. I needed to be able to beat them on my worst day. It's easier to fight someone when you're at your best, but it's like, how do I beat them when I'm at my worst? Like, that's what I wanted to figure out. And that's what kind of motivates me today, is that, like, I'm 46 years old with a bad back, bad knee, bad hip. If I'm in a self-defense situation or someone's trying to hurt me or whatever, like, I can't be like, I'll meet you back here on Monday at 2 p.m. I got to wait. I got to stretch out a little bit first. If you can let me, no, you got to be ready to go. So you have to be at a technical level and a composure level that is, unlike anybody else. So those are the things that I try to remember and I try to train for. I'm not able to train as much as I would like because of my body, but I try to maximize the most out of my training sessions, the best that I can.
Because I remember when you were on the Uncle Joey Diaz podcast, and that's what he was saying. He was like, as soon as he got mounted, he said he'd almost had a panic attack. And that hit home, because I can remember like that, the kind of crushing pressure. You're like, what do you do away from like the training to, use like meditation, visualization, things like that, to become sort of like the cerebral assassin almost that you've become? Do you use things like that to deal with the anxiety, all the nerves that you originally felt as you were getting in and evolving your skills?
Meditation was an important thing. I'm not sure I understood it so much when I was fighting, to be honest. But after I retired, I got more into meditation. I took a psychology course. It was like, I think, 5 years that I was doing it, and I learned a lot about breathing techniques and calming the mind and making that mind-body connection, and that helped me a lot. So much can be calmed down with your breath. And I think it helps in both getting your heart rate down, but also sending oxygen to the whole of your body and not just certain specific parts, and not being so tense when you experience adversity. Relaxing, being composed, and also visualization. For me, visualization isn't visualizing me beating everybody, or visualizing me getting my hand raised at the end of a match or something like that. That's not what I consider visualization. Visualization is like, how would I want to see myself competing? And what that does is it gives me a nice mental picture for how I want to execute my jiu-jitsu, or how I want to execute my game, or how I want to move when it comes down to doing what it is that I'm doing. And those end up becoming nice, I guess, ways of seeing how I want to move, and seeing if that is aligned with what I'm doing with my training. If that makes sense. And I used to do this when I was fighting. I would look at, guys like a Bokau in Muay Thai, or Fedor Emelianenko when he was fighting. You look at his calmness and his composure, or both of their calmness and composure, and how they fight. I found that extremely helpful to see how they went about their execution of their moves, and how they were pre-fight or during the fight. Now, that might not be for everybody, because everybody's different and everyone calls upon different resources, but those were kind of good mental pictures for me of how I wanted to compete. So I think finding guys that you look up to, and finding, guys that are the best at their fields, and seeing what their execution is like. And if you tend to vibe with that particular fighter, be like, okay, well, how do they do that? What is their mode of operation? How do they move? How composed are they? And I also relate it back to, and this is something I tell my students a lot, is, if you think about your first jiu-jitsu class ever, your typical first day one guy that comes in, they are typically tense, nervous, utilizing a lot of muscular strength. They're holding their breath. They're spazzing around. They're not pacing themselves. They're exhausted in 30 seconds. All right. We're all like that. Well, many of us anyway, right? I always think, okay, if that's day one, then we should be running so far away from that person. That should be the goal, right? It's like, how do we become the opposite of that day one person? How do we become calm, the opposite of tense and spazzy? How do we become technical, knowledgeable, the opposite of perhaps ignorant and, not having any information? How do we become, so doing that, I think, helps give us, like, I think that's what I consider visualization, is like getting that mental picture of how I want to operate as a martial artist.
Oh, like it's, I can't remember who said it. It was like, if you could beat yourself from yesterday or the last training session, you're winning. And I used to always think, like, could I beat myself? And it's like, yeah, I would have just tipped his legs over. But
I think that's a great way of looking at it, because that's at the end of the day what we're doing really is we are trying to beat ourselves. Yeah.
And do you think that's what you used to do during your warm-ups? Like, were you kind of visualizing how you wanted to compete, using your breath to kind of control yourself to get the noise of the event out your head before you went out and competed?
Definitely. Breathing was a big part of that. Reminding myself of how I wanted to see the execution of my moves, how I wanted to move. Seeing if I wanted to be fluid and open, then I had to see myself being fluid and open in that moment. If I wanted to respond in a certain way, I needed to visualize myself in some difficult spots and, trust myself that I was able to do it. And the other thing is just visualization is not enough. I hate to tell you guys, but it's not enough. You have to actually do it. I didn't just, see myself, being calm or seeing myself executing certain moves, and then all of a sudden I was just doing everything perfectly. It did not work that way, unfortunately. You have to compete, and you have to experience what it's like to be on a big fight night. You have to experience what it's like to have a camera in your face right before you're supposed to go out there. You have to experience what it's like to have, all those interviews before your fight, and people asking you annoying questions, and people dealing with, everyone trying to touch you and get a hold of you, and everyone trying to talk to you and distract you from what you're supposed to do. You have to learn how to set boundaries for yourself and get yourself in that mental space. You have to understand how to get your body and your mind prepared for, the biggest competition of your life. So, whatever it takes to get you present and aware in the moment, that's what you should be doing. And that's not just a direct process. That takes experience. And if you're doing it right, you're tackling little steps at a time, and it's ramping itself up. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes you tweak it a little bit too much, and you raise it too much, and you're like, that was too much, or that was too low, or that was, finding how to adjust that volume can be a difficult thing. And that, again, that comes with time. It comes with experience. So I would recommend anyone just, if you want to be a professional competitor, then, hey, guess what? It's going to take a lot of competitions, and that's extremely important.
But what happens when you do make a mistake? You get knocked out, you have a shitty training session, like when I first started, I wanted to go home and cry sometimes because how bad I felt compared to everybody else. And I wasn't looking at it as a you kind of situation. I was looking at it as I'm not as good as them, when it was stupid. But
yes.
Do you think that's a thing that we need to learn? It's to stop caring about that, to like, how do we recalibrate after a mistake? How do we, that's a learning experience. That's not a blight on my masculinity. That's something I can learn from, especially when you get older. You start going, don't be silly, but it eats at you. How do you deal with that?
Ian, that's something that I'm still working on, to be perfectly honest. I am very hard on myself. I am extremely hard on myself. And it is the thing that has pushed me to become better, but it is also a thing that has prevented me from getting better and being stronger mentally. We are human. We make mistakes. That is something that will always be the case, unfortunately. Even when we're training all the time and where you have a ton of experience, we're going to make mistakes. The key is, like, getting back on track. Do I get back on track by saying, Kenny, you're such an idiot. Why the fuck did you do that? That's dumb. Oh my gosh, you let yourself do that. You know better than that. I'm not in the present right now. I'm in the back. That move that happened 3 moves ago, I'm still there, mentally, physically, spiritually. Why the hell would I do that? And I still do that sometimes. Like, even like, it's funny because in some ways I am better about dealing with like chaos than I am like something simple like spilling like, juice on the floor or coffee on the floor or something like that. I'll be like, oh man, that was so stupid. What the hell? Those things happen. Like, relax. It's fine. It's going to be okay. And I need to remind myself of those things. So it's understanding that in a variety of ways. So I'm trying to learn that in all aspects of my life, because if you're like that in one aspect of your life, you're most likely going to be like that in all aspects of your life. Now, if we want to go deeper, why is that? Well, maybe it's the way that you were raised. Maybe it's the people that were around you that, if you're critical of yourself, you're probably critical because you were criticized, whether it's your family, whether it was school, whether it was something. And what you're doing is you're bringing in something old that is not true. The reality is we are human and we try to do things. And when you're doing things, you make mistakes in those things sometimes. And it's important for us to get back on track. Being in an old mentality or being in an old place, it holds us back. And that's something that I'm still learning today. It's something that I'm trying to get better with all the time. And you got to roll with it, right? Literally roll with the punches. That's the idea is, how do I get back on track, stay present with what's happening in front of me. That is the only real thing. The people that are watching, don't worry about the post analysis of what you're doing. Don't worry about the things on the periphery. It's me and that person, or me and this activity that's happening right now in real time. How do I focus on that and bring my attention there? And that's the only thing that matters. Because it doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect at that thing. What it means is you're bringing all of yourself. So you're bringing hopefully 100% of yourself, 100% of your attention, 100% of your capabilities, and 100% or as much as awareness as you can to the craft. Because when you do make your mistake, you're going to remember it. Where if I'm 3 steps back, or if I'm focused on that, person on the sideline, or my girlfriend over there clapping for me, I'm not going to be fully aware of what's going on right now. I'm not even going to be aware of the mistake that I made or the good move that I made. So I'm preventing that from getting embedded in me, right? It's like I can't download that information without me being as present as possible. Like, I need to be there for that experience. If I'm not all there for that experience, I can't bring that experience into me.
Oh, that's an amazing answer. I love it. And do you think that's why, your approach to life, because you've got a beautiful family, you're commentating, even, I can't even speak today. You're doing all these amazing things, but you're giving your all at that moment. Do you think that's why you've been so successful in each of these areas?
I try. Awareness is an interesting thing. I am not always 100% aware. I am not immune to mistakes. I have blind spots, and sometimes I don't see things, or I make mistakes. Sometimes I forget about certain things. So I try to bring the most of me to my activities. Yes. And that's when I find that I am most effective and at my best. Now, what I don't want to do is go, okay, Kenny, it's time to bring your best, or I am going to be amazing at this. That's not the way it works. And for me, in my experience, because in that process, what happens for me is I end up forcing things. And I find that when I force things, anytime I force something in my life, it doesn't tend to happen as smoothly as I would like. What I try to see it as is, okay, Kenny, now I'm going to allow myself to do things, and I'm going to be present. It's almost like clearing my mind and remembering that, like, okay, if I am doing martial arts, Kenny, you're a martial artist. It's time to do that. Now, forget about everything. Kenny, you're going to do commentary. You've done commentary before. You know how to do it. Be open. Just be present. Look at what's happening and do your best to communicate what's happening. Don't try to communicate what's happening. Don't try to fight. Just do. And that's the most important thing. And I find so many times it's like, I'm doing other kind of activities, let's say like shooting right now. And when I try to shoot well, I rarely shoot well. It's like I have to, if I'm trying to do something well, I'm not concerned with the process at hand. I'm trying to fulfill some weird vision in my mind, if that makes sense, as opposed to being like, okay, I'm getting the visualization of what I want to do, but now I need to erase that and just focus at the task at hand and think about not think about things, but like feel and just execute what I've been doing, as opposed to being like, all right, now it's time to be great. I don't know. I think that puts pressure and creates unrealistic expectations, when it should be more about allowing yourself to do that thing and clearing your mind and not thinking about results. Has been a good approach for me anyway.
I can't believe it's been an hour. I've just looked at the time. I was like, whoa, because that last couple of answers have blown me away because it's like so good to see how like what you can be, the potential for somebody who's saying, but I can't do fighting because I'm scared. I'm not somebody that can do that sort of thing. And it changed, martial arts have changed my life, but I am slowly growing. And now to see these amazing things, and even now, all the amazing things you've done, you're still just going, yeah, I'm learning every day. And I love that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, man. I remember thinking like when I started jiu-jitsu, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to get my blue belt, or I can't wait to get my purple belt, or man, imagine if one day I get my black belt. And this, like the journey, especially in things that have the depth of, like the depth of something like martial arts, it's never ending. You never get to a spot and you're like, well, I get to retire now. I am good. I know all things. It doesn't work that way. It's a constant learning process, and it's constant evolution. And there's so many different people that you can learn from, uh, and evolution is a never ending game for sure.
I think we've got to get another couple in, recorded, because I think we're just touching the surface on this. But I know we're tight for time. But for people listening, what would you want them to take from this? What would you want them as a sort of if they wanted to Florian their jiu-jitsu, or
Yeah.
Florini, as I think he called you, what advice would you give them, especially if it was like a podgy Highland guy who's interviewing you, like who's an older athlete wanting to become a better jiu-jitsu person, but to live the warrior lifestyle? What would you want them to take from this?
Um, I think that we we have certain perspectives and certain mindsets that we've just had for so long, and we take it as like gospel. We think that that is the way and that is the only way. Um, the reality is that we can transform ourselves in a variety of ways, and I think having that faith is super important, that you can transform yourself, but also understanding that it's going to take some time, and you don't have to tackle it all at once either. Um,
Hmm.
get those little wins, get those little battles, struggle, adjust, understand, repeat, do it over and over again, and find that strength within yourself. And what you're going to realize over time is that you're a lot stronger than you thought you were. And I guess that in that process, you end up having to become a little bit more honest with yourself. I think we live in a day and age where we do have a lot of mental health issues, and that happens for a variety of reasons. It could happen because of the way that we were raised, the environment we were raised in. It can happen, because we have false perceptions of the world and ourselves. It could happen from whatever struggles that we've had in our life, and us not living really in the present is what it comes down to. Um, and when we can find that we actually have value and that we do have strengths, but in order to get to those strengths, we have to address the weaknesses, then we realize that that is not just with our jujitsu, or not just with our martial arts, but that is in all aspects of our lives. I don't have life all figured out. I have, blind spots. I have weaknesses. I have things that I need to work on as a human being all the time. And it is my practice that allows me to see those things. It is my interactions with, family, friends, strangers, that allows me to see those things and understand a little bit more about myself. And we have to see all of the things of ourselves, even the bad parts. And I think we we tend to avoid those things, but those things are always there, and we need to continue to dig and find out what those things are, where they come from, and how I can address them uh, in a variety of ways. So uh, do that, do that work, because I think we're losing a lot of people because of that. people are losing their sense of reality. They're losing, meaning in their life. And I don't like using happiness because happiness is elusive. That comes and goes. But not having meaning, I think, is way more dangerous. So find what you love, chase it, and don't be afraid of chaos and adversity. Those are the things that are going to make you. Those are the things that are going to strengthen you. So why be average? Why be average? Push yourself to be great.
That's a beautiful answer, one of the best I've had to that question. And until we can get around to, and how can people keep in touch? How can we subscribe to your amazing YouTube channel? How can we find, how can we train with you? Have you got any more instructionals coming out? How can we keep in touch with the amazing journey that you're going on?
Thanks so much, man. I am at Kenny Florian on social media. It's Twitter and Instagram. You guys can hit me up there. I try to, post things of what I'm doing, where I'm going. For the most part, you could get that there. You can also get that at Kenny, my instructional. I have an online jiu-jitsu instructional at KennyFlorianMartialArts.com, where I talk about a lot of, conceptual stuff and just kind of big picture stuff that I hope will help people in the beginning of their journey. It's definitely can apply for people who are, been doing jiu-jitsu a long time as well. But I think it gives people a good outlook on how to approach jiu-jitsu and get some of the basics down to help their approach and understanding. So that's KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. And let's see. I'll be doing commentary for the PFL, Professional Fighters League. We have events coming up in New York City and in the UK. I'll be in Cardiff, Wales, and I'll be in London, England as well, doing that. And we got BattleBots on Discovery Channel, and that's pretty much it. And, I hope this has been a helpful conversation for people out there. And thanks for having me, Ian.
And you've got your amazing podcast as well.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for reminding me. I got my podcast with John Anik, the Anik and Florian podcast, which you can find on all platforms. We're also on YouTube. We'd love if you subscribe and give us some likes if you're interested. And I also have a YouTube channel as well, personally, where I go over a lot of different jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts stuff for people who are interested there. So hit me up, subscribe, give me some likes, ask questions. I do my best to try to respond and interact. And if there's things that people want to see, I'll do my best to try to put it out there. So I'm the worst at promoting my stuff. So thank you, Ian, for reminding me.
Well, that's it for another week. And thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.